So, my story is about being a father to a kid who is brave enough to be their true self. Now, this story was pre approved by the aforementioned offspring, who will be silently judging me from the audience this evening. Just kidding. Well, maybe, probably a little bit, but we'll hug it out later. It's going to be great. So, without further ado, I give you Transforming with Danny. I am a dad. It's not a terribly notable achievement considering that there are billions of dads out there doing dad stuff and telling dad jokes all over the world right now. But like with lots of other things in life, it's really more about who you are and what you do than how you got there. A little over 20 years ago, I became a dad for the first, and as it turned out, the only time. The doctor told us we had a girl, and for the first decade or so, he seemed to be right. There were tea parties and pink bedroom walls and Disney princess dresses and stuffed animals and Barbies and more stuffed animals. The standard trappings of a young girl in America. Now, during that time, I was working full-time as a user interface designer in Silicon Valley and doing contract work on the side to help support my family. So I was busy and I was exhausted, but I was also doing my very best to be present for this wonderful little gift of a human. We played and laughed with and at each other. I taught her how to read and ride a bike. I read and I made up bedtime stories and did different character voices for all the characters. And, I did my best to explain how things worked, trying to never underestimate this incredibly bright child's ability to comprehend complex ideas. And all of that and so much more gave me such a sense of purpose and filled me with such joy. And I loved all the special moments we shared together as father and daughter. Shortly after my wife and I separated on our way to divorce, our daughter at the age of 11 sat us both down individually to tell us that she was bisexual. Now, being pretty progressive parents, neither of us was fazed by that revelation, but my heart swelled seeing the courage that it took and the desire to share something so intimate. The next year, our child told us that they were gay and had a new name that they wanted to be called. So Sage was now Finn. The following year, they came to identify as agender. And we adjusted to they, them pronouns and another new name. Finn was now Lou, and then a little bit later, Kieran. Then, at the age of 14, this courageous kid shared with us that he identified as male and was planning to transition so that his outward appearance more closely matched how he felt inside. And from that moment, we all moved into the new world of he, him, his pronouns. And the person we had for so long considered our daughter became Danny, who was now our son. I fully support my kid and trust his ability to make choices and express himself based on his incredible level of self-awareness. And so does his mom, who is the best co-parent this guy and our kid could ask for. But I also grew up in suburban Dallas. I didn't even know what gay was until I was like 19 or 20. And to my knowledge, I had only met maybe one or two transgender persons up to this point where Danny had announced his transition. I wasn't LGBTQ illiterate or homophobic, but I had a lot of learning to do around terminology, gender identity, and I have to confess, I found myself terribly sad at the loss of my daughter, who I had come to know and love so much. And so it was now my turn to transition. And it was my responsibility to do the internal work of grieving the loss of my daughter so I could fully embrace and support my son. For me, the only option was to do whatever it took to be on Team Danny. Even though I wasn't attached to walking my girl down the aisle or any of the other storied life moments attributed to the father-daughter relationship, um, my heart ached so much, and I spent many nights with tears streaming down my cheek as I worked my way through what seemed an inordinate amount of pain and sadness, considering that the kid I love so much hadn't actually gone anywhere. On the other side of that grief was a new relationship and a new dynamic. I started calling him dude and bro to acknowledge and reinforce his budding dudeness and to be, to his desire to be gendered according to how he felt. Also, in response to so many times of finding him curled up in the fetal position, crying out the emotional and traumatic pain of his transition, on top of all the teen angst we all experienced, I hand painted a t-shirt with a gold M on one side and a gold F on the other, connected with dots, with a gold zipper underneath so that he could move that zipper to wherever he felt like he was on the gender spectrum at any given moment. When he expressed his desire to have his breast removed at some point, I had a baseball raglan t-shirt printed up that says, "Top surgery is the tits." Now, having been a web, graphic, furniture, t-shirt designer for many years, and making t-shirts for him every year for his birthday, these items in particular were tangible things I could create for him to express my love for him and to say, "Hey, dude, I see you and I've got you." As a cisgendered heterosexual man, I will never understand what it's like to feel so uncomfortable or foreign in my body or the dysphoria that comes with it. I'll never know what it's like to wish so badly to be gendered correctly in public. I'll never experience the judgment or bullying or violence that confronts so often people who are in gender transition. But what I do understand is how important it is to feel seen, supported, and held in our deepest pain and depression, as well as in our moments of lightness and joy. Danny has navigated his way through all the travails of his transition to this point with the help of his parents and therapists and friends and an amazing, awesome organization called Out Youth that supports LGBTQ teens. Team Danny was literally an entire team of people who cared enough about his well-being to show up and help lift him up. Even though he was scared at first that he had somehow unwittingly signed up for some standard toxic masculinity in this transition, he has now grown into his own masculinity, which he continues to explore and experience for himself. Selfishly, I'd like to think that I played a part in what masculinity looks and feels like to him, but that's his tale to tell, and maybe y'all can convince him to tell that next year. You know what I'm saying? Now, my favorite trans dude and I get to look forward to beard maintenance tips, smiling at each other when we walk into places and someone says, "Hey guys," and many years of sharing our love of drawing and our sense of humor that usually ends up creating random, ridiculous characters that bring us to tears literally every time we hang out. The two things that I have always wanted most as a father were for my kid to feel unquestionably loved and to be the fullest expression of himself. The first part is pretty well nailed down, and he's definitely on his way to fulfilling the second. I couldn't be more proud of who he is and his immense courage and fortitude in the face of what at times was overwhelming anxiety and depression. His deep love, empathy, and compassion for everyone and everything is truly beautiful to witness. On top of all that, I got to experience what it's like to have a daughter and now a son, all wrapped up in one fantastic human who also turned out to be one of my greatest teachers. I feel like the luckiest dad alive. Thank you, Danny. I love you, dude. Thank y'all.